Hi all, I have another model game to show you from the amazing new course, the Nimzo course, which you can find on that bit.ly link. Let's have a look at this game example. So this is Vladimir Georgiev against Peter Leko, played in the Chess Olympiad of 2012. d4 from Vladimir, and we have knight f6, c4, e6, and white doesn't sidestep the Nimzo with knight f3, the chicken move, but instead plays knight c3. Not really a chicken move, sensible move, but knight c3 allows the Nimzovichian pin. So Aaron Nimzovich, who did my system, one of the leading hypermodernists, this was his brainchild opening. It actually demonstrated quite well a lot of the concepts in my system, like restrain, blockade, destroy, and other things, blockade in the wider sense. We have bishop g5. Now here Peter Leko played for a dark square strategy, c5, but with a difference also that technically, as well as hitting the dark squares in the centre, the queen is liberated, and it's pretty useful in this position because the bishop's just gone to g5 as a sort of sitting target sometimes of the a5 queen. So c5 prepares quite a vicious queen a5, very logical, it seems, in this case, to head for the Benoni pawn chain setup. So d5, d6, but with the bishop outside the pawn chain here. e3, and now e takes, c takes, and now knight bd7 is played here. Not the immediate queen a5. Black doesn't want to be saddled with double pawns, for example. So we have bishop d3. Now queen a5, it's safe to do queen a5 now. And you'll note also that knight takes d5 and bishop takes c3 are the two key threats in this position. White plays this like a kind of gambit. Well, he has to. He sort of gambits the d5 pawn, hoping to get enough compensation. Should black be brave enough to take on d5 here? Well, in fact, Peter Leko did. He took up the gauntlet. Knight takes d5. Now white castles, and now we have bishop takes c3, and now b takes c3 is played. And here is a very powerful and key move that Peter Leko played in this position. Can you guess, if I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, black to play here, what would you do here? Okay, tread with caution, not taking on c3 immediately, but in fact c4. So this, pardon me, c4. So this opens up this potential hit on the bishop on g5. If knight takes c3 had been played, then actually this position is uncomfortable for black after bishop b5. That unveils queen takes d6 sometimes, and there's also bishop e7, so this is actually pretty nasty for black to be avoided. Black would have to give up the exchange and is in a terrible state. So you have to be very careful not to take here. A bit too greedy there. And also in this variation, it's pretty bad if giving up the exchange here makes no difference. In fact, a4 might be the strongest. And then taking on d7 and then taking on f8, white's just ending up with a big advantage. So the key move here is c4. So liberating the queen across there, the 5th rank. We have bishop c2. The point is, if bishop takes c4, there's 2 loose pieces in the position. And now knight 5 to b6 hits both the bishop and this other one. And that wins a piece. So very important little trick here, tactically. This c4 move. So we have bishop c2, and in this case, now in this position, again, black resists the temptation to take on c3, but just castles. So leaving c3 weak, and also the bishop is a loose piece in the position. This is actually better than taking on c3 immediately. Just to demonstrate that, taking on c3 immediately, bishop a4, this could result in a reasonable advantage for black in the case of bishop a4, but in the case of bishop f4, white actually has some good compensation going, so that should be about equal. So anyway, black castles. This is the best thing to do. Delay taking on c3, delay the greed a bit. Knight g3, and white's really throwing down the gauntlet to say, look, if you take, I'm going to hit you with an attack. You've neglected the soft spot, h7. How dare you take on c3? Should black dare to take on c3 here? By the way, just before we get into that game continuation, if bishop h4, this might be one of the more sensible moves, getting the bishop out of that firing line. Knight takes this position. Looks as though, yeah, the bishop pair of white is actually quite impressive and may offer some compensation. But even if white gains a pawn, black's still a pawn up and should be fine here. Small advantage at least to black. So knight g3, really going for it, trying to get a vicious attack going. Here knight takes c3 is played, inviting the queen in to hit the soft spot, threaten mate. So a key defensive move is required here. Black to play, test your defensive skills. What would you play in this position? Threatened with mate. If I give you 5 seconds, it looks like one of the best defensive moves is played in this position. Okay. Defend like Peter Leko. f5 is played. This is supported by the queen and the rook, of course. If knight f6 instead, then queen h4 is good, even though that bishop's pinned clearly. I mean, if white doesn't want the exchange of queens. And this creates a certain amount of pressure on the black position and a very, very strong attack. It's diabolical for black. So things fall apart here. You might wonder, well, why knight takes a2? If knight d5, then rook takes c4. Yeah, white's getting a huge possession here with the king finding no safety. So a very important key defensive move, f5. G6 is also, you might have considered as an alternative. You are weakening the dark squares, and in fact in this scenario f4 is strong for white with significant attacking pressure. For example, e4, trying to lift the blockade on the f pawn, and things can get really quite nasty here for black. Yeah, this could end up with white having a big attack, so be careful about that. So f5, good defensive move if you found it. e4, trying to wrench things open. Knight takes f5 can be handled here. Just rook takes. There's no problem there. That's just absolutely no problem. So we have e4, and now knight takes e4. We have rook ad1. White doesn't really want to pin the bishop to the queen. For example, knight takes e4 leaves a nasty pin on that bishop here. So there's nothing really for white to do there. And knight f6 is then possible, protecting h7. The bishop can't take, so queen takes h5. Queen and bishop hit. That is pretty horrendous. Yeah, that's going to be winning material for black. Say the queen moves here, then knight takes e4 hits the queen again, and then taking here. Tactical disaster for white. In this line, if bishop takes e4 and knight takes e4, knight f6 is strong. Still celebrating that pin against the queen. So knight takes, g takes is possible, and that's winning material for black. That's just materialistic, but winning. So rook ad1. We have knight d f6. With tempo, bishop takes, knight takes. The two bishops have been removed from white's position. Peter Leko must have been more confident here, surely. Queen c5 supporting d6, looking at f2. We have rook d4, d5, rook fd1, bishop e6, knight takes f5. Peter Leko doesn't mind losing a pawn back. He's got two connected pass pawns in the centre here, and nice central pressure after rook ae8. g4, this is weakening the king, but it's a very, very difficult position now. In any case, there's potential for a rook coming to the 7th rank, pressure on the f file. Things are looking a bit nasty. So g4, rook e5, trying to dissuade g5, rook f4, reinforcing f5 for g5. So we have h6, key defensive move. And again, there's horrible pressure on g5. There could be a nasty pin again after queen g5 with things like d4. we have g5 immediately. So as an example, another example, h3 here, knight e4 is possible, and knight g5. This would be absolutely brilliant for black, taking that e file. So black's really is coming in the driving seat here. g5 trying to throw the dice at black's king. Knight h5, key defensive move again, hitting the rook, exposing, liberating this rook on f5. And the queen is also playing a useful role here, of course, protecting f8 if there's any naughty tactics, trying to win f8. The queen's protecting f8. We have queen takes h5, rook takes f5, and things are converging on f2 potentially. After rook takes, eyeing f2, eyeing g5. White throws in the check, token check, queen f8, and here white's resigning here in this position is pretty hopeless. Black is just winning this position. If queen takes f8, say queen takes, this endgame is very, very nice for black with those two connected passed pawns there. 4-1 pawn majority. Absolutely brilliant. So this is a very, very important bit of opening theory in the Nimzo engine to know about, where sometimes you do want to head for those Benoni structures with advantage when the bishop is a target on g5. You'll find this is one of the core games mentioned, the model game section of this amazing new course which has been launched today, the Nimzo Rogozin course, a lifetime opening repertoire because it could last a lifetime. The popularity of this has not been waning too much in recent years, and it's by Chess Explained and FM Daniel Barish. So I am Chess Explained, of course, fantastic YouTuber and a great opening theoretician. So you can expect this to be of the highest standards imaginable, and giving you all you need to know to fight d4, 1d4. So it's interesting actually. This game is cited as one of the one of the special cases where the c5 is used rather than d5 in Rogozin style. It's mentioned because of the special trying to exploit the drawbacks of bishop g5. The trade-off between that specificness and the consistency of Rogozin style, swayed here to try and definitely exploit c5 in the most accurate way. So it's it keeps fluid like water, the ideas in this course. So a great repertoire book to train with. Hope you check it out. Okay, thanks very much.